Okay, so welcome back to the podcast. We're joined for episode 2 with Dr. Lisa Clift. Hello again.
Hi. Hi.
And today we're going to jump straight in. We're going to talk about ultra-processed foods and how that affects weight loss. So, Mark, tell people about your book.
Yeah, so I've been reading the book lately, and to say it's rocked my world is an understatement. Ultra-Processed People by Dr. Chris Van Tullikers. I've been reading this, audio booking it, shall we say, for the past week, and yeah, I've just changed my whole view on how I see things and how I see the whole food industry. And I thought, well, we have Dr. Lisa with us, it's something we'd like to talk about today. So yeah, let's crack on with it. So ultra-processed food, let's start with there, Lisa.
So I would totally agree with you. I think it's a book that rocked my world as well. I just think, very well written and so much information, and obviously it seems based on a lot of scientific fact. I think he's gone on to do lots of, with policies and politics to now try and improve the situation for everyone. So yeah, it's good book.
Absolutely. So let's just start from the right beginning, because some people might not even know what the term ultra-processed food means. So what makes an ultra-processed food?
Okay, so I think, so as it was discussed in there, so the definition, at the moment, is based on the NOVA classification, which was sort of invented by a man called Carlos Montero, who basically designed this sort of categorization. So basically the first category would be category 1, which is a normal whole food. So for example, if you took an apple, so an apple would be class 1 NOVA classification, because nothing's happened to it. It is what you see is what you get.
It's natural form.
Yeah, exactly, in its natural form. So the second one would be, say if you slice, like category 2 would be if you sliced an apple. So, you can imagine, so it's had something done to it. So it's had a bit of processing. You might peel it, you might slice it, you take the core out, that sort of thing. So that would be classification 2. So classification 3 would be, say for example, if you made apple sauce. So you've mushed it up, you've maybe added a little bit of sugar, so that would be, it's you can see kind of where it's come from, but it's had a lot already done to it. It's had something added to it. And then category 4, or classification type 4, would be when things have been added to it. So an example of that might be like an apple pie from McDonald's, where it actually bears not a lot of resemblance what you're getting to what the original product is. So it would probably have sort of preservatives added to it. It would have things done to it, so the food matrix of the original apple has been affected. So yeah, and so other ways of sort of knowing if what you're eating is an ultra processed food might be looking at the ingredients on a food label. So I think if you're looking at weight loss yourself, I think it's really important to get really good knowledge of what you're looking at on food labels. And if there are products there that you don't recognize, the things you don't have in your kitchen, then that might be, there's a good chance that's going to be an ultra processed food.
Yeah, and it's something I heard, and that was another doctor, I think he's a doctor, Tim Spector.
Oh yeah.
That was he did mention the NOVA classification, but he did say the easiest way to identify ultra-processed food is if it's got ingredients on the back that you wouldn't find in your kitchen normally. So if it was something like maltodextrose or xanthan gum or some of these weird, wonderful things that you've got no idea what they are, but they make up a big part of these foods. And so that kind of leads on. We've kind of covered it a little bit, but the difference between what is processed foods and ultra-processed foods. And so are processed foods bad? Or are all ultra-processed foods bad, if that makes sense?
So I think, a processed food might be going back to sort of the mushed up apple. So So it's not necessarily have chemicals added to it, but it's not in its original form. The problem with that is that if you're eating that, then it gets into the sugar that you're eating from, or the ingredients that you're eating. So whether it's fat, sugar, it gets into your bloodstream very quickly. So if you're eating an apple, it's mixed in with, it's got fiber. So fiber gets absorbed. It slows down the absorption of the sugar from the apple. But if you're eating apple sauce or apple juice, which is processed but not ultra processed, then it gets absorbed by your stomach very quickly. The sugar gets into your blood very quickly. Your pancreas will release insulin in response to that, because you're having a big glucose spike. You release your insulin, and then your sugar levels will go down, and probably go down less than what they were. Will make you start feeling hungry. Will give you that sort of sugar slump, make you feel a bit irritable, that sort of thing. So the processing is, probably your category 3, not ideal, because you don't want to have big spikes of sugar, because when you've got insulin around, you can't break down fat. So if you're having lots of, say if you have an orange juice, spike of sugar, lots of insulin, then an hour later you have, another glass of apple juice or whatever, another spike of sugar, and all the time that you've got lots of insulin around, you're never going to be breaking down fat, because the job of insulin is to take the sugar out of your blood and deposit fat around and store it basically around your body.
Good.
So
yeah, so it's all about, so you say it gets into bloodstream quicker, and it's a quick release, and so it's all down the problem with that is your body then produces insulin, and obviously the downside to that.
Yeah, so it's all about the food matrix. So it's, you've got the ingredients might be the same, but the food matrix, the way it's formulated. So when you're eating a piece of fruit, you're not going to get such a high sugar spike, because there's lots of fiber, which slows down the absorption of. So for example, if you were making an orange juice, it's made up of 6 oranges. If you drank that, you could drink that easily, but you couldn't eat 6 oranges. No. Because it's the fiber from the oranges which will slow it down.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
You're removing that essential factor. And does that mean that you can, because if your body deals with that through insulin, so you've had the spike, your body's dealt with that, do you then get hungrier quicker because your body's...
You do, because your sugar level then will go probably below, you get a rebound, it goes below what it was originally, and that stimulates you to eat, to be hungry again. Yeah.
So essentially then, the more processed the food, the quicker it works, the quicker our body reacts to it, and the quicker we get hungrier, which in turn means we eat more of the bad stuff normally. And the way to avoid that is to try and eat things in its more natural environment.
Yeah, exactly. So whole foods. So eat them as you recognize them. So if you look at something, you think, I can't even tell where the hell that's come from, then it's probably not a great thing to be eating. So for example, like, pop chip. You think, where is that even? What is that even? Do you recognize any of that? Where do you think that might have come from?
It doesn't
like, is what I mean. It's
it doesn't like form of food.
Yeah.
I think that's the sort of one thing that really got me thinking, and it was just so many foods that are just so far removed from their original form, and how that's been the one thing that I've really sort of taken from this is I want to start just eating food close to its natural form. I can't see myself being someone who's going to spend my whole evening when I'm doing the weekly shop looking at the back of every label. But what the easiest test for me is I can look at the food in front of me. That's an apple. That's a potato. Yeah. I know that. Yeah. I can eat that, and go from there. That said, I did discover an app just recently called Yuka. Have you heard of Yuka?
No.
So Yuka, spelled Y-U-K-A, and is an app which will scan the barcode of a food item, and it will give you a score out of 100 as to how ultra processed it is, and it'll give you a either a bad, poor, good, or excellent. And if it's bad or poor or whatever, it will tell you why it's poor. So it would be either high in fat, salt, sugar, or packed full of additives. And with the additives, it tells you what additives they are and why they're bad for you. So the additives can be of limited risk, moderate risk, or hazardous.
Yeah.
And when I downloaded this app and started looking into this, it really sort of opened my eye to things. One of the foods that our kids eat daily, literally daily, is these pan of chocolates that you can get from Aldi. You get 8 in a pack, they're quite cheap. It's often their go-to breakfast item. And I scanned it and it was showing up as bad. It was, of the spectrum of things that you can get, it was one of the worst things that you could possibly have. And it was high in sugar and fat, which no surprise there really. But there was additives in there, and there was 2 additives that were deemed to be hazardous. And then we shared this with my stepdaughter, and she was blown away by it. She doesn't often take an interest in sort of healthy foods and healthy eating. But when she saw that what was in this, it really opened her eyes. And from there, she was like, I ain't touching this ever again. Please do not buy these. I'm not going to eat them. And I was like, wow, it's actually, it's got through to them, which has often been hard for kids. And I'm sure you agree, you've got kids yourself, and getting to eat healthy is a challenge.
Yeah.
And so it just really did sort of open my eyes on it. One of the other foods on the Yucca app, so I went to football at the weekend, and we stopped at a service station for a bite to eat. And I got myself got a sparkling water, because I drink that a lot anyway. But I got sausage roll, and I thought, well, let's go out Marks and Spencer, let's get one of the better quality ones. So I got a high end one. It was turkey cranberry one, something like that. And I was about 3/4 of the way through it. Let's just scan it on the app and see what it's like. And it came through as bad, and it was the worst possible score you could have got on the app. And it was 0 out of 100. It was awful. And it was, again, additives. It was high in fat and salt and everything. And I kind of half expected that. It is a sausage roll. But there's all the other stuff was added into it. I was thinking I was making a good choice. But in turn, it was, when I actually looked at it, it was bad for me. And that was one of the things we'll probably come on to, but some of the foods are, like I said, they can be marketed as being better quality. They've also can be marketed as low fat or low salt or low sugar. And those things are all factually correct, but they would be made up with something else to give it the same taste and same effect. Should we just talk a bit more about that and sort of these sort of low fat and low fat foods, for example?
Yeah. So I think you're absolutely right. So unfortunately, I think that is, now that there's been a emphasis of about eating healthily, the food industry are now changing their marketing to try to appeal. So, for example, you can get a high protein yogurt but has it actually got more protein than a normal yogurt? So
yogurt high in protein anyway, isn't it? Yeah.
So, and what's it had added? Or if you go for a low-fat yogurt, then you can rest assured that in order to make it tasty, it's had sugar added to it. So, and that was the whole thing with the, the 70s and 80s, when there was the whole change about everyone's thoughts about fat, and we were advised fat causes your cholesterol to go high, then everything became low fat. But the problem was it was then had added sugar in it, and it's the sugar that is the problem, the refined carbohydrate and the sugar, because like we said, it spikes up your blood sugars, you get insulin released, and then that's why we've got this rising prevalence of obesity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if sugar is a problem, we'll see that's been countered in the drinks market with sugar-free drinks.
Yeah.
Where does that go?
So the sugar-free drinks, which are sweetened with chemicals, are as bad as the drinks with sugar. because they do the same thing to your body. So your body recognizes that it's sweet, it then responds to it, so you still get a rise in insulin, even though it hasn't got sugar. It might have saccharin or stevia, which is the supposed natural sweetener. It does the same thing to your body. So I think I heard something really funny where they said something like the most intelligent thing Donald Trump ever said was, did you hear that?
Yes.
You never get a skinny person drinking a Diet Coke.
It's true.
It's, yeah.
And it was a series of tweets he did, like Chris Van Tillican referenced
Maybe
it in
that
his
was
book.
that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, you don't, there's the skinny people drinking Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And then he then went on, there was a few ramblings on other tweets, but he then went on to say, whenever I drink it, it makes me more hungry.
Yeah.
And it was in those series of tweets, he kind of literally summarised the whole state of ultra-processed foods. And the thing that I took away from it in this book is the foods are engineered to make you consume more, make you want more. And if they're testing a new product with like their focus groups, they'll have like say two drinks or two sort of brands of cereal or 2 types of cereal. They're going to just try it, and then they'll realise that people who eat 20% more of this one, that'll be the one that they take to market. And it's scary, really. Yeah. And it's for the first time, it just got me thinking about the whole food market as a whole, and where are we going with all of this? If the food's engineered to make you consume more, then we spoke about in the previous episode that we are people living with obesity, and they're not at fault.
No,
they're not. There's greater powers acting here, and it's quite scary, really.
Yeah. That is the thing. And that's one of the things I first say to my patients is when I see them is, this is not your fault. And literally you can just see, like we've said before, you can just see the tears coming into their eyes. And it seems like such a relief to say that. You say, no, you're 47% of this is genetics, and the rest is the environment that we live in.
Yeah.
So, like you say, how hard is it that the food, or it's not even food. So people say this isn't food. Food is meant to nourish you, make you feel better and healthy.
Yeah.
This is literally poison. It's poisoning your body. Yeah. Your body doesn't know how to metabolize it. It's making, it's designed to be hyper palatable. So it's got emulsifiers and things in it to make it taste better and you get absorb it quickly, so that the messages from your stomach don't get to your brain quick enough. So that before you know it, you've eaten loads of it, and then before you're even remotely full.
Yes.
So
we joke about it. We've had this joke between us. You open a pack of biscuits, only plan to have 1 or 2, but before you know it, you've got through the whole pack, and it's that. Yeah. It really is that.
And even Pringles say it themselves, don't they? When you pop, you can't stop, because that's what they're designed to do.
They are. It is. Yeah. Oh,
but I think in a way that, I did a month where I gave up ultra processed food.
Okay.
And in a way, it's quite. So I think I'm quite a black and white person. So I've stopped drinking alcohol as a kind of extended experiment, because I didn't think it was serving me particularly. I was getting anxiety, and I was tired, and would need to be able to think and everything. So I thought, right, I'm going to try going off the alcohol. And I think having that like black and white, so it's like, right, I'm just not going to drink. So I've changed my identity. I'm right, I don't drink alcohol. So I don't have to think about it. So we were talking about willpower before.
Yeah.
That if you're relying on willpower all the time, it is so exhausting. Like you burn up so much energy trying to, I mustn't eat that. I must say, should I have 1 drink, 2 drinks, 3 drinks? Or maybe if I have a gin and tonic, that's better than a beer. And so I think for me, to just say I'm not drinking is such a relief. I'm just like, well, that's me now. I don't drink. Yeah. That's it. So I don't have to think about it. I don't have to waste energy on it. And in a way, I think you could do that also with ultra-processed food.
Yeah.
You could just go, and I did try it, and actually I'm just now totally going against what I was saying, because whether it's sustainable, because that's the way the food is designed. It's designed to trigger you to, you know, all those things. It's designed to make you want more and more of it. But it's something you could go, right, I don't eat ultra-processed food, that's it. And that would be a black and white thing. It might appeal to certain people who are like me, who are sort of, you know, one thing or the other. And you don't have to have all that dialogue going in your head saying, oh, should I eat that? How much of that should I have? Or I might have too many crisps, or maybe just say, just don't eat any of it.
Yeah. My approach, I guess, is slightly different. I feel that we can't escape it.
No.
It is everywhere.
Yeah.
And so kind of having to make peace with the fact is I may want to, but it's going to be real hard pressed to just eradicate it entirely. But I now have that knowledge, and so I feel like I'm more equipped to make better choices.
Yeah.
And sort of with sort of an understanding of, like, having read this book and with this app, if I'm out and about and I'm on the road with my work, and I'm often in the services, or I just pull into a supermarket for a quick meal deal, that was often my sort of lunch. I now feel better prepared and better equipped to make a smart decision. So the one thing that's changed for me more than anything since reading this book was I no longer drink Diet Coke or Coke Zero. Now, I guzzled Coke Zero and Diet Coke like it was going out of fashion. My everyday lunch out the road was a meal deal. Pop into Tesco, Sainsbury's, wherever. Big sandwich, biggest sandwich I could find, because it was always the way. Grab a bag of crisps and, Coke Zero, Diet Coke. So I'd always have half a litre every day without fail on my lunch, but then I'd do my weekly shop and I'd get a 24-pack of Diet Coke or Coke Zero, and I'd have one when I get home, and my other half would, the kids would. I wouldn't think anything of it. Since reading that book, I haven't. I've not had one, not one. What I did hear was he was asked, Chris Van Tullochen, he was kind of put on the spot. If you had a can of Diet Coke and a can of regular Coca-Cola, which one is better? Which one would you have? I think he was very quick to say, they're both bad for you. Neither are good. But if you had to put a gun to my head and I had to pick one, the original Coca-Cola probably shades it. It's probably that little bit better. But I understand both are bad, and we really should be mindful of that. And so since then, I think I've had 2 cans of Coca-Cola in 3-4 weeks, I think it is now, which is unheard of for me. Up until that point, it was almost daily. Even when I was doing Cambridge weight plan, actually, well, for the first part, when I lost a lot of weight quickly, I didn't. And then when I got to a point where I was getting more happy with my weight, I started to introduce it. And I did find I was then falling off the wagon every now and again on my diet. And I thought, maybe they're connected. And because it makes you feel hungry. Yeah. And it's crazy, really. But so I've really take a step back from sort of sugar-free drinks, something that was so big and what that I'd had, and it was a daily thing. I'd drink more sugar-free fizzy drinks than I would drink water. That's changed, and that's not the same anymore.
So, sorry, not
cool. I was going to say, the problem is, though, is that realistically, like we were saying, nearly everything that you can drink other than water is processed to some form. So, like we've been out for lunch today whilst recording, and I had an orange juice. Now, previously, I would have thought an orange juice is a good, healthy alternative, because orange juice, again, is marketed as not from country normally, and just oranges and stuff. So you think, oranges are good for you, therefore this drink must be good for you. And it's a proper minefield.
Yeah. Because with orange juice, like you were saying with the apples, it's effectively ripped the fibre out, and it's just the sugar you're taking.
It's pretty much, sorry to say this, just after you've had is that it's probably the worst thing you can have. And for children as well. So we always used to have, a glass of orange juice with breakfast. Yeah. And it's literally like an instant sugar hit because it's liquid, goes into your stomach, straight in the bloodstream.
It's like Coca-Cola in that sense, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a hit of sugar.
Yeah.
So yeah, you lose the food matrix, the orange that it's the fiber that's meant to go with it, and so it is so that's what I was going to say. So and basically, so with sugar, so table sugar is sucrose, and sucrose is made up from glucose and fructose, and our body. So just explaining why added sugar is so bad is because glucose and fructose, so table sucrose made up of glucose and fructose, your body can use glucose, so you can use it for your muscles. Every cell in your, you need energy. It's your source of energy. So you do need glucose. Fructose, your body can't metabolize. And so it has to it goes straight to your liver. It gets stored in your liver. And that's why there's such a high rate of fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, because of all the sugar that people are drinking or eating, which the fructose can't be metabolized, goes to the liver, gets stored as fat. And so all the added sugar that's in the drinks, as we said, are worse because it happens so quickly. Your body, that's why we've got such a massive increase in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So even in children who this was never heard of, are now beginning to get fatty liver disease.
So you said there about the table sugar. So with your more natural sugar, so for example, we were saying if you eat an apple, we know that there's sugar in it.
Yeah.
Is that just the sugar that your body can?
So no, because there is also fructose in fruit.
Right.
But if you've got it with the fiber that as it's intended, it's so you can handle it. You'll then excrete
It's attached to the fiber.
Yeah. So that's the way it should be. The fiber acts to line your gut, and so it slows down the absorption, and so your body can handle it. But it's when it just hits your bloodstream so rapidly, and it's like, right, we've got to get rid of this. We're going to store it all in the liver.
Got you. So you still...
So yes, there is fructose in fruit.
Yeah.
But it's in the food matrix, and therefore it's easier for our bodies to manage.
Yeah. Many moons ago now, I did a Slim World, and I always wondered why you could eat as many apples as you want on their diet plan, but you couldn't drink. You couldn't blend it.
Yeah.
That's all because of the way your body deals with it, which is how it's all.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, should we just have a quick chat about the healthy alternatives then, just to try and give some people some practical tips. So, my natural one is my children love chicken nuggets, and they'll probably want to one of the most processed dinners that you can have. But my children also love chicken breasts, right? And that's although you don't see it like that culturally unless you work on farms, if you want to sort a house, but generally speaking, that's more natural. So yeah, I think one of the things that I'm going to take away from this is that actually my oldest son's favorite dinner is chicken nuggets and chips, but actually I could make all of that from natural ingredients. I could grab a chicken breast and I could just cook that up because he likes chicken, and then I could make the chips and potatoes.
Yeah. But if you leave the skin on the potatoes and you can olive oil, put them in the oven, then you've got that's as you say, it's whole food, doesn't it? Things you recognise. What
I've found as well, sort of using this Yucca app, sort of scanning all my food now and see what it is and what's in it and that, there's some things that really do surprise you. I said I had this sausage roll, which I thought was a good quality sausage roll, going to be not the best for me, but certainly not bad for me. On the flip of that, I was going through the freezer last night, just looking through what we got in our freezer, because like I said, I'm of the opinion I can't eradicate it, so we'll eat what we've got and we won't get any more. I scanned the bag of oven chips and it came through excellent. It had 2 ingredients, potato and sunflower oil. And I thought, they're actually all right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to sort of be feeding my kids oven chips every night, but it made me realise that there are some good options and alternatives out there. Now, if I got the curly fries or something like that, they were horrendous because they're packed full of additives, they're packed full of flavourings and all sorts. And so when you're doing your shopping, there's always an alternative. And if you know something's not good for you, just take that moment to have a think, what else is there? If you've got the Yucca app, download that and sort of see what the alternatives are. That's the good thing about it. If you do scan bad food or poor food, it will come up with possible alternatives that you could have instead. So yeah, like I said, this sausage roll came up and it was bad, and it did come up with an alternative sausage roll, and which I could have got from Marks and Spencer as well. It was a cheaper one, which was just
That's mind blowing.
yeah. It is just how it goes.
So I've noticed in the supermarket, looking at a tin of tomatoes.
Yeah,
So and cheaper ones have got added sugar, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even I would never have even looked at that before, and I find that quite depressing. The fact that there's all those hidden sugars.
Yeah.
And you think you're being okay. A tin of tomatoes, what's that? It's got nothing in it, but then it's got that hidden sugar, and So the thing about this, and so talking about the report that came out from the House of Lords, which from the Food, Diet and Obesity Committee, and I thought quite dramatically, named their report Recipe for Health, and have said that food labelling does need to be improved. That we've got to stop being like conned by the food industry.
Yeah.
It's got to be simple, it's got to be uniform, it's got to be on every piece of food so that you know what you're getting.
Yeah. And I think in other countries they are already doing this, aren't they?
Yeah.
In far better than we are. We have that traffic light symbol for salt, sugar, and I can't remember what else it is, but
fat, be saturated, saturated fat.
And if you look at Diet Coke, it's 5 greens, so that's suggesting it's the ultimate health food.
Yeah. So I suppose that's what they should add on it.
Yeah.
Whether it's ultra processed, whether there's added chemicals. And things. Yeah.
So what are they doing in other countries then?
So I think in terms of not necessarily ultra processed food specifically, but I think there is a tax on food that are higher have higher fat, sugar and salts. And in Chile and in Mexico, they've brought that tax in, and they have shown that it's related to sort of health outcomes. So that's really what it's like, our sugar tax.
Okay.
So when that was brought in, that they, rather than pay the tax, the drinks industry have lowered the sugar that's in their drinks. But then, like,
Plastic sweeteners, haven't they?
Yeah, and then what happens is they try and get around it, so they bring out the sugary milky drinks.
Yeah.
So now the recommendations from that report are it needs to go towards sugary milky drinks as well. But it does scare me a bit that there's always a way around the rule you switch. Yeah.
And so one question is, why are UPFs so prevalent in our diets?
I think because they're cheap, so they're often they're cheap to produce. They're convenient. So we all have difficult lives. Often, mum and dad are working. It's the same as I'm sure in our families. I work full time. My husband works full time. We get home. What we're going to have? Oh, let's just get something out of the freezer.
Yeah.
Or a ready meal. It's quick. It's you're starving by the time you get in from work, so it's convenient. But it's also got all the it's got all these unhealthy disadvantages to it. So I think that's why do we have it? Because of those reasons. Also, it's designed to be to be really tasty, and that's why we're drawn to it, because we're especially if you've got a genetic predisposition to it, then you're going to be drawn to those sorts of foods that are packaged in a way that are attractive. And foods that are kind of addictive.
Yeah, and ultimately it's all about making money for the manufacturers.
Yeah.
And I guess you can make money selling apples, but if you can sort of grind them down, turn them into apple pies, you can make more money.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. And so I think for the food companies, it's not about providing nutrition, it's more about providing profit for the shareholders. Yeah. And that's taking priority, and it's a sad state of affairs, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
So...
And the problem is that moving on from that is then you've then got the marketing and the labelling, which we touched on earlier. And I think you said in other countries they've changed the way that companies are allowed to market. Is that right?
Well, you were saying about that they've taken away the cartoon associations with certain cereals.
Yes, so I know in Mexico, so Frosties, Tony the Tiger is no longer on the front of Mexican Frosties. So, yeah. And so it should be, really. Said it's, I guess, cartoon characters marketing an unhealthy ultra-processed food to kids is really awful.
Yeah, so I don't know if whether we should... So I was telling you about, a group that I would love to mention, because I think they're absolutely amazing, is a group of child activists. They're called Bite Back.
Yes, we sent that last night.
Yeah, so they are amazing group of, as I said, child activists who are turning around to the big food industries and just saying, no, we don't want your advertising. We don't want to go into school and we're serving a load of rubbish. We don't want to come out of school and we see billboards that have got full of unhealthy food options. We don't want, we don't want to be watching TV and then there's loads of adverts for unhealthy food. We don't want to be looking at our cricketers and they're all looking like a bunch of crisp packets. So they're fighting back, and they're absolutely amazing. I listened to them talk when I went to a lifestyle conference. And in the room was probably 1,000 healthcare professionals, and I would say the majority were doctors. And 2 15-year-olds stood up and they talked, and they had some great pictures of just all this, how they are bombarded by all this advertising. And there is evidence to show that it does increase consumption, or there would be otherwise, why would the food industry do it? And so they were pivotal in, the stopping advertising on the TV before 9 o'clock. So they were in that decision, because I think they went and sort of went to the government to try and get that to happen. And that interestingly, when I went to their website to have a look, there was a group of kids from Peterborough who have been working with Bite Back to try and reduce the amount of billboard ads in Peterborough, where we are today. So I just thought that was so interesting. Yeah.
I think that's really good.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes I think government could definitely do more, and it's really good to see that kids are sort of getting behind that. But I do kind of feel sorry for them as well, because I remember when that sugar tax came out, and was it the pasty tax, and the amount of spin the media put on it, and people certainly seemed quite anti it, and you kind of feel for the government when the changes that have definitely not gone far enough, but they get given a hard time for it. And I damned if they do, damned if they don't, I think, and that's kind of...
So that's the thing. So I think that is the argument that people put, that we don't want to be a nanny state. But that is the argument that they have relied on.
Yes.
And where's that coming from? That has been fed through from the food industry.
Yeah. It's the same for the NRA in America, isn't it? Food and gun control.
Yeah.
How be a nanny state.
Yeah. And actually, when they've surveyed people do want more restrictions. And also the food industry want more restrictions, because what they're saying is that I don't want to be, so I'm Kellogg's, I don't want to be, okay, I'm going to reduce the sugar in my cereals, but what about that lot? What they want is it for it to be completely global, so that it's a level playing field, so they're all doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So these were the recommendations from this House of Lords report, which has gone to the government, which they've got to respond to in 2 months' time, basically saying that we need a complete overhaul of the system, that we need a independent food strategy that's there for the long term, and that it's got to be completely independent of the food industry, and it should be sort of managed by the Food Standards Agency, and they need to be reportable to the government and with certain targets. And that's what's, you've got to be reformulation of food so that it's reduced in fat, HFSS, so fat, sugar and salt.
Sure.
So that, sorry to go on, but that was one of the problems with the UPF thing. So in that report, they didn't say about UPF, because what they're saying is that there isn't enough research done on it. So what they're saying, is it just that these foods are high in fat, sugar and salt, or is it the way they're processed? Is it the additive that's causing the poor health outcomes?
Yeah.
Is it just these foods tend to be high in fat, salt and sugar, or is it that they're high in fat, sugar and salt, and they're also processed, those things added to them, they're made, they've got emulsifiers and additives and things like that. So that's where they're saying more research needs to be done on that.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit of a cop-out.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the things that I sort of look at is, take the Mediterranean diet, high in fat, high in salt, probably fairly high in sugar. They drink wine quite regularly. So it's quite high in a lot of those things. But it's so much better for you. And that's the ultra process. And so, and I also looked at, like, when I made a roast dinner the weekend, it was high in fat. It was probably high in salt, but there was no ultra processed food in it. It was a roast chicken, roast potato, it's whole food.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, going back to your point, I think it can't just be salt, sugar and fat. There has to be more to it. Like I said, we make food, and with making food which has got sugar, fat and salt in it for years and years and years, meats have been cured for years and years with high salt. So yeah, it's definitely more than that, and that's why, certainly my opinion anyway. And so when we start looking at additives, emulsifiers and all sorts of weird and wonderful potions that are making our foods cheaper to produce and more addictive, then yeah, there's something more to be done there.
So it's probably but I think sugar has got it's got a major role.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking at, fatty liver, so the amount of sugar in food, sugar in food has caused an explosion of that sort of, in the old days, in my day, when I was a kid, we used to see alcoholic fatty disease. Now we're seeing the same thing, but it's due to the sugar that's in the food.
Yeah.
It's the same process.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Cool. I think I'll wind it up there, Lisa. That's been a great episode, and it's very informative, I think.
Yeah, and if you missed the first episode with Lisa, then go back and watch that. And the next episode is going to be Q&A.
Q&A. But just before we sign off, again, the book is Ultra Processed People by Chris Van Tulloken. I thoroughly recommend it. As I said, it's literally rocked my world. And you can get it on audiobook, or then you can get it in bookshops or get it on Amazon. Give it a go. Okay, thanks guys.